want to introduce everybody to Cameron Kaufman, who is, I believe you're the chief of staff for,
Director of Constituent Services.
there you go.
I appreciate you just promoted me.
For chief of staff. Thank you. Thanks for being here, Cameron. So
No, of course.
What's that?
No, of course. Thank you for having us on. And the council member unfortunately can't be on tonight, but I'm happy to speak on her behalf and speak to everybody. And I just want to thank Joyce and Lynn and Paul for the incredible job that they've done in just a short few weeks, galvanizing and really rallying the island about these really problematic maps that have been drawn, and getting people up in arms and getting people to be doing what's most helpful, which is getting ready to testify. So, the council member is very concerned about the draft maps that were put out. They're separating vital communities of interest, right? Roosevelt Island, obviously, we're talking about right now, but not just Roosevelt Island, Sutton Place, parts of Yorkville on the Upper East Side. All these communities have a clear connection, cultural, historical, economic, transportation, whatever you name it, through our schools, through our parks, through our institutions, to District 5, kind of all to the same neighborhood. And these maps, by putting part in District 26, really sever that historical connection. And by breaking up a community of interest, right, that is one of the requirements of preserving community of interest. It's the third requirement on the city charter. It's something that's supposed to be really critical when you're drawing districts. So it is certainly something that we're concerned about, and we are doing everything that we can as a city council office to try and ensure that the commission I want to give some background and kind of the process, that the commission ends up making changes to it and that we're able to do everything that we can to ensure that happens. And the commission does take all of this public testimony into account. I'm sure Joyce has already given many of information how to testify and will give it more tonight. There will be a public hearing in person for Manhattan on the 22nd. That's 2 Mondays from now, at 5:30. That's in Harlem at the Schomburg Center. But even in addition to that, sending in emails as an individual resident just makes even as much of a difference. It really does have an effect, and all testimony submitted will be put on the website. Now, on our end, the council, the charter is kind of specific about how it wants council members to be involved. And so it really is advising us to work with the speaker's office. So the speaker got to appoint 5 members to the redistricting commission. So we're going directly through the speaker, and we are trying to determine, kind of whether it's a formal letter to the speaker, a formal letter to the commission, a letter to both, whatever exactly it is, but whatever the kind of speaker advises the best way to register the grievances about the separation of communities of interest and the concerns raised by many of you on this call, that we've heard from folks in Sutton Place, that we've heard from folks in Yorkville. And, that is part of why we're on tonight as well, is to listen, to hear that, because we want to put that into our correspondence. The final thing that I'll say is that I do want to clear up, there's been some kind of misconceptions that I've heard from people reaching out to our office. While this is certainly problematic, this doesn't affect the zip code, the school district, the actual borough that Roosevelt Island is in, or for that matter, that Sutton Place or the Upper East Side is in. This is about the council district, and right, that is very important in terms of representation and funding for a lot of things. And so it's critical, but it's not, I heard from multiple people that were like, I'm going to have to change my ID. It's going to be Queens, not Manhattan. No, that will not change based on this. And I do want to make sure that that's very clear. And the school, PS 217 will still be a District 2 school. That will not change. However, there are many reasons to be concerned. As I said, right, the council has a lot of funding responsibility and really can determine a lot of important resource allocations, whether to schools, to parks, to local community organizations. And so that is why we are all galvanizing here tonight, because it really does make a difference. Thank you again, Joyce. I'm happy to answer any questions, but I think the Congress member is on now.
We have Congresswoman Carolyn Maloney, our phenomenal ally for many, many years on with us. So Carolyn, here, we're going to give you the floor.
Well, I see Margie and a lot of other good friends, and I'm with you 100%. You have a copy of my letter for the redistricting. We want to keep you in the Manhattan district. I think it's certainly better that the tram comes from Manhattan. You're connected to Manhattan. Your congresswoman is in Manhattan. So I am going to lobby and work with you in that way. We've had a good long run together. One of the first things I did when I was elected was build the F train going through Roosevelt Island and into Queens, improving your transportation, and also the long haul of getting Cornell, Technion, winning that, bringing them to the island. And then one of the things you all asked for from the beginning was a park, and I think we overdid the top. Four Freedoms Park is now a tourist destination. It's a really historic landmark park. I go there when I really want to be inspired. It's a beautiful place to be. So the island is the best is yet to come, but we need to really get the people out voting on this. I'm running against the west side. You got to believe that the east side that lives there, loves it, represents it, it's going to do the better job. So I think if we lose it to the west side, you'll probably never, ever get it back. So we need to really get the vote out. We need to get the people out on the redistricting. So there's a lot of community organizing that needs to take place. I work for you. I'm proud of bringing money in for the Blackwell House to remodernize it, and money from the Army Corps of Engineers to repair the waterfront around Roosevelt Island, and of course got the ferry to go to Roosevelt Island. At first they didn't want to go. They didn't think they had enough enough people there, but we got it going there. And as you know, I'm working now with the doctor and others trying to get a medical care center going to continue the work on the island so that we have a vaccination, testing, treatment center, and also primary care for the island. So those are some of the things that I'm working on right now. I work for you and support the Arts Center and all the wonderful things that are taking place. I was at the Arts Center the other night, and I'm proud of having brought in safety cameras for the subway systems, and I really tried to respond. But you know that the island is rated one of the safest places in the whole city. You know that. So we've been doing pretty good there. But I'm here to work for you, and I'm here to answer your questions. And Joyce, thanks for getting me on this Zoom.
Does anybody have any questions for Carolyn? Can you raise your hands? And if I can't see you with your little raised hand thing in the Zoom, you can just wave to me. I'm going to put it back on gallery view. And if you go like this in front of your face, I'll be able to call on you since you're coming up on my screen. If you have any questions for Carolyn, or if you have a question for Cameron, raise your hands. No, we're good to go. Okay. So Carolyn, thank you so much for all of your efforts for Roosevelt Island, and the letter that you created for the redistricting commission was really outstanding. And I think it would be very, very difficult for them to actually ignore it. So it was wonderful that we got your support on this issue. We appreciate you wholeheartedly. And with that, does anybody have any questions for Carolyn?
I do. It's Starlight Harris.
Okay, Starlight, ask away.
I'm sorry. I'm new to all of this. I'm just finding things and trying to inform my neighbors. But one of the things that I know that Roosevelt is the safest place in Manhattan, or period, like it's a beautiful place. But I'm hearing that we're having some issues with some of the neighbors in our community. And I wanted to know, how is that issue going to be resolved?
Well, right now, I think some of our legislators are actually getting involved in getting that resolved. One of them is Julie Menon. And that really underscores why it's so important to keep our district in Julie's capable hands, because our district really is a very, very safe community. And, will we get the same kind of cooperation out of a district where there are, so many buildings that have these types of problems? So I think that it really underscores why we need Julie and the efforts that she makes to help with the issue that you're raising. Starlight, this is really not a discussion specifically about a particular community problem, but more of what we can do in order to ensure that we have the kind of legislative support to deal with our problems as they come up.
Exactly.
So I appreciate you raising that.
Yeah.
Because I know for a fact that Julie Menon is very involved with your building and trying to get that resolved. And it just goes, it just underscores really why we need to keep our district in Julie's hands. Rebecca Weintraub is on tonight also. Are you here, Rebecca?
Hi, thanks so much for having me on, Joyce. Yes.
Thank you.
And sorry for being a few minutes late there. I have an almost 2-year-old and he was having a little bit of trouble going down for bed, but
for those of you who don't know, Rebecca is our district leader.
Rebecca, I'm gonna get off now. Hi, everybody. It's great to see everybody. I'm at my campaign headquarters right now, and we're having a sort of a strategy meeting. So I'm going to get off now. All
Good
right.
luck.
So much for
Thank
joining
you for
us
having me
tonight,
on,
Carolyn.
Joyce. Thank you for having me.
talk to you later,
I'm
Carolyn.
here to help in any way. Thanks so
Thank
much.
you.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Yeah, so I just wanted to give a quick update. I spoke to Lynn about this earlier in the week, but your district leaders, myself and Ben Wetzler, actually had a series of long conversations this past week with the commissioners themselves about what's going on with our district. And we wanted to make sure that we were being properly represented. We started by talking to 2 commissioners who had already voted against the maps and had already felt very strongly that there were problems across the city with them. And we discussed our district, District 5 in particular, especially Roosevelt Island, and what we really see as an injustice here. They both assured us that they were taking copious notes, and by speaking directly to them, we were able to give ourselves a voice in the commission room, which I think is very valuable. And we're going to keep that line of communication open with them over the next few weeks. You guys are doing everything right. I mean, we asked for advice on how to get their attention, and they said basically spam them with emails and mail. And
Sure
I know that we're doing a great job of that. So you're doing all of the right things. And I'm so excited to join you in this effort to correct what really cannot possibly stay for our district. Roosevelt Island is extremely special to so many of us, and it is Manhattan, and it should be in a Manhattan-based district.
From your mouth to God's ears, Rebecca.
But I will continue to speak with the commissioners, and as I do so, I will keep you guys updated. And I hope that you'll go to the hearings and provide testimony in person if possible. I know not everyone can, but if you are physically able to do so, I highly recommend it.
Fantastic. Anybody have any questions for Rebecca?
I'm going to put my email address in the chat, and if anyone ever has any questions, it looks like Karen does, but please feel free. But I will also put my email in the chat for anyone who wants to reach out in the future.
Terrific. Karen, did you want?
Hi. Yes. Hi, Rebecca. Hi, Joyce, everyone. I just wanted to ask, since the Manhattan hearing is in Harlem, would it the closest hearing to us is Astoria? Does it matter, or if we go to the Astoria one to speak out, or would we make a stronger case if we went to the Harlem location?
They're all equal I recommend that we try to go to as many as possible. But the most important thing is to get as many people as possible to one single meeting.
Exactly, which is why we focused on the Manhattan meeting. First of all, we are in the Manhattan district. We want to make it perfectly clear that we're in the Manhattan district. It also gave us more time to organize, and we feel that that's crucial. And so you can actually go to the meeting at the Museum of, was it the Moving Image?
Moving Images.
And
Yeah.
you can go to that, and you can go to the Manhattan meeting. If you can't go to the meeting in Manhattan, but another meeting is more convenient for you, then by all means, don't think twice about going. We'll miss you, and we'll, we would certainly prefer, that you come with us as the group, because being in a group really is a big statement for these people on the commission, and it resonates with them, and that's why we feel that getting as many people to the Manhattan site is in our best interest.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So
And-
Joyce, Carol had asked some questions at our Saturday meeting that I was able to get some information on. And she had asked what would be changing for like income levels and things like that, and how would this redistricting change the dynamic of the district. So I was able to get that information today, and I'd like to share that with everyone. So currently in community, the Council District 26, the average income is $80,000 a year. And the preliminary map for the district would then move the average income, because of adding Roosevelt Island and Manhattan, up to $110,000 a year. So that would negatively affect our neighbors in Queens. The other thing is, if you go to the average income in the district by Astoria, the average income is $79,180. Sunnyside is $80,913. Upper East Side, including Roosevelt Island, is $134,264. And Murray Hill puts and that's what's driving the whole number up. And that's $154,501 as their average incomes. So what that does to Queens is it will negatively affect affordable housing for the district in Queens if it stays. And I wanted to also, because this was a question that came up, was how does it change the district population? I'm sorry, I just lost this. Let me see if I can pull it back. In terms of the ethnic diversity. So in the current district, it is 29% white, non-Hispanic, 29% Hispanic, 31% Asian, and 6% Black. The way that the district will now be made up is 44% white, non-Hispanic, 22% Hispanic, 25% Asian, and 4% Black. So it definitely affects the diversity of that community and literally changes the dynamic of it. So these were some of the questions that I know came up on Saturday that I worked hard to try to get you the information. So if anybody has any other questions, I just wanted to bring those statistics up.
Excellent. Well, that's certainly good to know. And I think
Thank you so much for that clarification. But I also followed up the question to you, Joyce. What I read from the Astoria newspaper, that the one district should have like 172,000 people in the population. So by adding Roosevelt Island, now it goes up to about 184,000. Is that something that should merit?
It's still within the statistical range that they're trying to achieve. But I think that is part of the argument that it does put it a little over. But I think that if we go with the fact that they are breaking their own rules, which is something that we did talk about on Saturday, that getting them to recognize that the shape. So the other thing that came up, and I want to be clear on this because I spent a lot of time really trying to drill in this today. So here's something that will be really problematic for us going forward, is that the tram will stay in Julie's district, the tram itself. That will be the only thing that stays in Julie's district. And I really have some concerns on the dynamic of having such an important aspect of Roosevelt Island in a different district than we would be represented in. And I find that extremely problematic in terms of our being covered by, so that would mean that we would actually still have to deal with, we would have to deal with 2 city council people, 2 borough presidents, 2, it just gets, and we've already had challenges because of the nature of Roosevelt Island being city and being state and having accountability on a state level. This adds another onerous and really problematic to our representation. So I just wanted to be very clear about that.
Absolutely, because our when we have repairs or we have capital improvements or things that need permitting, we won't have our particular city council person fighting for us to ease the way to get those things done, and for us to have the Manhattan side of the tram and the Roosevelt Island side of the tram under different people's districts will be problematic. I think also the fact that that a tramway is actually mentioned within the guidelines for the redistricting commission, that we'll be able to get some leverage on that particular issue. And I think that Carolyn covered that quite well in her letter, that it was very important for us to have the kind of direct input from our council member on any repairs or any issues that come up on the tramway. So that is, I think, a major concern for everyone and something that we'll be focusing on. Anybody else have any questions? Oh, got some more. Rebecca, you got a question.
I was actually just going to add one thing to what Lynn just said, which is not only is the tram in 2 different districts, but one of the things that we were very clear with the commission is unacceptable is that the F train stops that serve Roosevelt Island are in 3 different districts.
Wow.
The F train stop in Manhattan is in District 4. The F train stop in Roosevelt Island would be in District 26. And the F train stop in Queens is in a completely different district from that. And so getting capital improvements that you were talking about and getting people to pay attention to accessibility issues that directly affect Roosevelt Islanders would involve 3 different city council members, 2 different borough presidents. And we thought that was unacceptable.
Wow. Karen, you have a question. You can unmute yourself.
Yes, hi.
Oh,
So just going off of that, my main question was, do we have a plan that we have drawn up of
Yes.
what we would hope it would look like?
What we hope the as an alternative to the redistricting plan, Yes.
Yes.
Lynn, has-
Mhm.
Yeah.
Where can I find that?
we can email that to you.
Yeah.
Uh,
Okay,
Yeah, we will, in fact, I can send it out as an attachment in our next email blast. Is there anyone here on this Zoom that is actually not on our email list? If you are on this call and you're not on our list, let me know and we'll get you on the list. Ellen, what's your question? You gotta unmute yourself.
Okay, so Rebecca, you mentioned borough president. So would we be losing a borough president if we became part of Queens? or-
Absolutely not. So your borough president would still be the Manhattan borough president. My mention of borough president is in the context of 3 subway stops, one of which would be in Queens. So if there were any capital improvements being made, like we were talking about, the stop in Queens would be dependent on a Queens council member and the Queens borough president. The one on Roosevelt Island would be responsible of District 26's council member in Queens, but the Manhattan borough president. And then the one in Manhattan would be Keith Powers and the Manhattan borough president. And so it's a lot of cooks in a kitchen, and it definitely will make it a lot harder for us to feel properly represented, because different pieces will go to different places and it might not be done properly. But no, you would absolutely still have the Manhattan borough president as your borough president. This is not changing the fact that Roosevelt Island is Manhattan. I think Cameron covered incredibly well earlier. I was very impressed with the way he was explaining what doesn't change: the school districts, your borough, your zip codes. None of that will change. And your county level representation will stay the same.
And I do want to add that Community Board 8 did speak directly with our borough president, Levine, today. And he's definitely going to be writing a letter, and we're hoping that he may author something with Julie on this. So.
Yeah, exactly. As Lynn said, we spoke with the borough president. You know, we're going to see kind of to get him to write something and see if we can sign on to it. So we're working with him, and he is just as concerned. But no, you would still be in Manhattan with the Manhattan borough president, but you know, just as much he sees the very many problems and concerns that would arise from the district plan itself, but he would still have this as part of his representation.
And I want to add to what Cameron was saying, because I think this is really important, that is confusing a lot of people. And we really have been trying to be very clear about what would change and what wouldn't. We will always stay in the county of Manhattan. The county districts were formed in the 1800s and have not changed since then. So feel safe about that. We will stay in the Manhattan County. What we're really talking about is discretionary funding. We're talking about city funding that will definitely be impacted by our schools. Our everything else will be impacted because we are going to be competing differently than we had in the past for that funding. So that's the thing that I think I really want to focus people in will change the most. And I think that's reasonable to say, Cameron.
100%. That's exactly right, Lynn. And I think that it's perfect to kind of explain. The city council does a lot of things, right? We do constituent services, and obviously, you know, in terms of responsiveness, the ties between a community and the rest of its district really do matter, right? And Roosevelt Island has been part of this district, District 5, for such a long time. And so, you know, as the director of constituent services, I was, as Joyce was referring to, was on the island just 2 days ago, working on an issue within a specific building, right? So there's a lot of intrinsic knowledge that we have there, and that definitely does have an effect. But in addition to that, right, we make capital funding upgrades to schools, capital funding upgrades to parks, certain community organizations such as Carter Burden or whoever might apply to the council for funding, and the pot is the same pot for every single council member, and they have to make resource allocations based on their community. And, you know, when you have a community that has a coherence to it and has a cohesiveness to it, as District 5 does right now, those allocations can be made in a way where everybody sees benefits to them. And, you know, people have brought up to our office participatory budgeting, you know, right, the top vote getter in participatory budgeting was library funding that went to the Roosevelt Island Library, the library on 67th Street, and the library on 78th and York Avenue. So, you know, and Roosevelt Island's Green Roof project won the participatory budgeting, I think it was in 2018. So that was 4 years ago under Councilmember Kalos, our predecessor. But that sort of thing is an important point to notice, because it demonstrates that Roosevelt Island is very well integrated into the fabric of the district. And when you can win a participatory budgeting, it shows that A, you have a politically active populace, but B, that it's, you know, it's really part of the entire community. And so when those funding decisions are made, it is really important to consider what communities of interest are and what they're comprised of. And so that is what is at stake. It's kind of how the council can function in that regard. And while certainly the other stuff is important, that's not luckily at threat, right? Your zip code is always going to be your zip code, and you're not going to have to start saying you're from Queens, New York, but it does really affect a lot of the different projects that the island cares about and is concerned about. And I think it is important to note that.
Well said. And making it very, very clear. So thank you very much for that, Cameron.
Cameron, I just wanted to make sure we still have participatory budget.
Yes, you would, but it would just be amongst a different district. And well, actually, I'm assuming Councilmember Juan would do participatory budgeting. I don't know, right? It's optional for every
I
council.
don't know.
I don't think she does. I don't think she has it on her website. So
Well, this past year, only 14 council members did it. Normally it's about 35, 36. And it will be back. And I saw her staff on the participatory budgeting training just a couple of days ago. So I think you'd have it, but the point more that was to be made was, right, when you let an entire community vote on what's to be funded, it does demonstrate kind of a community's cohesiveness. And, you know, the fact that Roosevelt Island projects have won in recent years demonstrate, right, the ties between the community. I think that's the really important point to be taken away from that.
Exactly. Okay,
Joyce, would you mind if I jumped in and answered the question from Susie in the chat?
go right ahead. I can't read the chat.
Okay, so there's a question from Susie in the chat, which says, what about the Department of Education district for Roosevelt Island? Could that change? Hi, Susie. No, not right now, at least. District 2 is your school district. It is separate from your council district. I can't find any guidelines on how we redistrict our school districts. I know that we've had a few different, in like the last 100 years, we've had a few different ways that we've managed our school districts, but District 2 is not going to be affected by this.
At this point.
At this
point, yeah.
Yeah, we
concern
spoke with the Department of Education because we got a lot of those questions, and yeah, this has nothing to do with that. It would require an entire action from the City Council and the Department of Education to redraw and change the lines. And that's just not to say it's not impossible, but you know, it's certainly not, this does not precipitate that by any means. And it is important to note that. And the same goes for community districts, right? Community boards can be redrawn by an action in the city charter, and it could happen, but it's, you know, this would have nothing to do with that in that regard.
Right.
And I'd love to just add on to the school districts. If you look at the school district maps, the districts don't cross county lines at this time. So it's unlikely that you would be, even if that happened, redistricted into a different county, which would be Queens County. Because there's no, I mean, we could have a very good argument for precedent there because there are no county line crosses for that.
Well, there, unfortunately, in this redistricting, there would be for the council. So that could set a precedent that we're.
But no, I'm saying for school districts.
I understand.
Yeah.
But once you set a precedent in one area, it could open Pandora's box. So we just want to make sure
Yeah,
that.
absolutely. But
that box stays closed.
we've always had cross-county city council districts. Those have always existed. They just haven't included us. But there have not been cross-county school districts.
Very good. Very good.
Yeah, and I think that that's important for that Rebecca make that point, because that's one of the final things I do want to make, right? The charter says that they don't want to have crossover districts unless it's absolutely necessary. Right now, the way the population shakes out, it's impossible to not have any districts that cross county lines, because otherwise, it has to be divisible by like 170,000, and certainly not every county is divisible by 170,000. District 8, which is above us, goes between East Harlem and the South Bronx, but that has been like that for a very long time. I believe even since the days that like Carolyn Maloney, Congresswoman Maloney, represented that area in Congress years ago before she was elected, in the council before she was elected to Congress. So there are crossover districts. They exist. There's a district that goes between Bushwick in Brooklyn and Ridgewood in Queens, two neighborhoods that are right next to each other. But this crossover, right, is an unprecedented one. I think that's the point in saying that the district could be drawn in a different way where crossovers happen, but not some that separate communities of interest that have consistently been together.
Exactly. All right. So folks, again, if you've just joined us, please make sure that your microphone is muted. And if you're on and your microphone's not muted, please make sure that your microphone is muted. We're going to take 2 more questions, and then if you'd like to put your questions in the chat, we'll try and get back to you with them, but we've got some more business that we need to cover. So I'm going to pick on 2. So I'm going to take questions from 2 people that have not previously raised their hands. Ann Siegel, you have the floor.
I don't know who is the best person to answer this question. What is the logic for this proposed change in redistricting?
There is none. Really. It's really, I think, personally, I think it's a numbers game. Rebecca, maybe you might have some insight there, but I think that really
It's a numbers game.
Do a balancing act. And
it's a numbers game, and they did Staten Island first. And so the goal was to keep Staten Island whole. I don't know why. And by doing that, every single other district in the entire city feels like something is wrong. And that was solely because they felt they could get all of Staten Island into one district based on population numbers. So it's all about numbers.
Okay, Susie Del Campo, you have the floor.
Hello from Mexico. Yes, thanks for doing this again. Thanks for everyone to be here. My question is this. Our Roosevelt Island organizations, non-for-profits, always rely for the support, not economically, but for the support of our city council, because we do have a lot of problems with REOC. So how will it affect us if we're changed to District 5? That I'm sure it will not happen. I'm positive about that. We'll have to start all over again, or we will not be, or we will turn into the invisible part of the district, because maybe the part of Queens needs more help and they will not know how to deal with REOC. If this happens, if the redistricting happens, how could we fight for our non-for-profits? Because we do have a lot and it will affect us all.
So the answer, I believe, is you're absolutely right. It does impact us very, very negatively in that there's no institutional memory. There is an institutional memory that's been passed down from one of our city council people to the next, and our interaction with REOC is certainly something that we need our city council people to help with. And if we're working with the city council person whose district is even in greater need or has more established needs that sap their energy and their time, then yeah, we're going to be on the short end of the stick. That's one of the reasons that we're fighting so hard for this. We don't want to be on the short end of any city councilor's stick. And you would ask, what could we do about it? Well, unfortunately, the end result of what happens if you're not comfortable with the redistricting that takes place is that the alternative is to perhaps enter into a lawsuit against the commission, which we would certainly prefer to avoid. But there are a number of us that are on this call, in fact, that have been involved in lawsuits related to the best interest of this community. And we kind of thought that that was a thing of the past. And we'd like to continue thinking that it's a thing of the past. It may not be, but we're going to do whatever we can in order to make sure that we don't have that problem and that we don't need a lawsuit. Anybody else have a question? Okay, we have a few more things that we really have to cover tonight. First of all, one of the things that we're going to do is to create the interest in going for doing the testimony before the hearing. And we'd like to make sure that everybody registers to be heard before the hearing. So we're going to be sending out a URL address and a Google Doc that you can use in order to register to speak. And that's very important if you're going to actually want to speak before the commission. You actually have to register in advance in order to make that happen. Rebecca, do you know if they actually will take people from the floor that have not yet registered? If they're there?
I think it's going to depend on how many people are there.
Yeah.
I highly recommend that we register.
Yeah. So we're going to need to register in order to speak. Also, there are actually three ways that you can give testimony. You can give testimony as a speaker. You can give testimony by Zoom, and you can also give written testimony. So you can do all of those things. And but in order to actually speak at the hearing, you're going to need to register in advance. So we're going to be sending out that information to you. And that's why it's so important for anybody that wants to speak to get on our email list so that we can give you the proper information. Also, we're going to try to organize so that we're all looking like a unit. We're going to ask that everybody wear red, our Roosevelt Island color. And we're going to, this Saturday at 4 o'clock over at the amphitheater, which is right by 536 Main Street. Some people complained that they didn't know how to find the amphitheater last weekend. It's between 510 and 540. And if you follow the signs to 536, you literally will be tripping over the amphitheater. So 4 o'clock at the amphitheater on Saturday, we're going to be there making signs so that we can go there and look like a group. And you know how when you see the news and you see all these people at these hearings holding up signs, that's going to be us making noise, looking unified, and doing what it takes to get these commissioners to understand that we mean business. Can you raise your hands and let us know if you're interested in coming down at 4 o'clock on Saturday to help us make signs? We need to get as many people there as possible. And how many people, just a show of hands, how many people are interested in coming to the 5/22 date? I'm sorry, the August 22nd date for the hearing in Manhattan. Let's see a show of hands. Let's see. Okay. And okay. Just in case you're all interested, when does this end? It ends on December 7th is when the final draft of the redistricting is actually submitted. And so we're going to be fighting this for as long as it takes. up until the final draft is actually submitted. So those of you who have asked me, how long is this going to take us? That's basically the time frame. Okay, it's actually submitted to City Council on December the 7th. Does anybody else have any questions for us? Ellen, you need to unmute yourself.
So if we go to two different hearings and we read the same thing at both hearings, they're going to get our statement twice. Is there something wrong with that, or does that is that an okay thing to do?
Rebecca?
That's more than okay. We can, persistence is going to be extremely important here. The commissioners that we spoke with told us that in all honesty, he used the word spam. He was like, we need people, if someone like me, your district leader, shows up and says, this is what my community says, that's great. But what they really want to see is the community coming out and saying it themselves. And there will be other communities fighting for what they need and want for their district. And every line that changes is going to change another line in the city. It's a domino effect. You can show up to as many meetings as you'd like.
Okay.
So we could go to the Queen's meeting with them and have a much larger show of force also.
The only thing I would say is that those are two different, the things that we want are different from what they want. They don't necessarily care whether or not the Upper East Side and Roosevelt Island are in their district. They care more that they lost, or that Woodside, a neighborhood in Queens, was split into 3 different districts, a community of interest there that is very clear and that I am pretty certain will be reunited, which will likely help us in the end. But their arguments are going to be focused on like what they want for their district on that side of it, which is the complete opposite side of the district. Whereas our arguments are going to be focused on Roosevelt Island and Lenox Hill.
I see.
So
Also,
you're more than welcome to go to the Queen's meeting. It's a good thing to do. But we will have different arguments from the Queen's group. It won't be like a single coalition.
Keep in mind that you're going to be limited to 3 minutes for your comments. Also, so it would be a good idea when you have comments or you're intending to be at the hearing to actually write down your comments and make sure that you're within that 3-minute time frame. Also, you can submit your comments in writing. And so bring them with you.
They usually request that you come with 2 copies of your speech, and you hand one to the commissioners ahead of time. They make copies for everybody, for all the commissioners. So you take 1 copy, you hand it to them, and they'll make copies for all the commissioners, and then you read yours. That's how it
Excellent.
generally works.
So did they collect it as you're walking through the door? Is that a yes?
That was a
Yeah.
yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So, all righty. And Susie, I think you're next. You had your hand up.
Yes. Okay. My question is this: what is the minimum age limit to send an email or to speak at the meeting? Because if I can rally my girls and the kids from the school and the kids of Roosevelt Island, it will make an impact. And that will be great. And the other thing is, Rebecca, if, for example, the organizations for youth in Roosevelt Island, if they make a statement and collect the names of the kids that are supporting not redistricting, will it have any value? Because in that case, we can rally Island Kids, the tennis, Main Street Theater, PS 217, New York Tennis, the Baseball League, the Soccer League, and all of the rest. And it will be tons of kids that say, I love my council, I love Julie Many, I don't want to be in a district that they don't know anything of my needs, and we are by ourselves, and they will not fight for us and we want to stay in District 26 or whatever district we're in right
District
now.
5.
So
Yeah.
that's my question, so I can start rallying up and make a letter, and the
Do it.
parents can
Do it.
start signing up their
Susie, there
kids'
is
names,
no
or
limit.
make that.
There is no age limit. If you can find a 2-year-old who can give a speech, you're welcome to it. There is no limit. I love student involvement. I've loved it since I was a student. I was the kid getting signatures to save a library in my neighborhood as a kid. I would say that if you're going to get names of students, like you said, if they're not going to physically be there, or if they're not going to write their
Yes.
own letters or email their own letters, I would recommend having a letter that they sign on to. And then you send that letter with all of the students' names to the commission as the testimony. Does that make sense?
Do they have to sign and
They
then
don't
I
have to
just send the
physically
image
sign
of the
it.
letter?
They don't have to physically sign it, but it would be the same as like if you wrote an email testimony, if you wrote a letter and the students, and then every student who quote signs onto it, you put their name as one of the people who's signing the email or the letter.
Yes.
So that they, you know, when like kind of like when you sign one of those petitions online and it gets sent off to your senator.
Email.
Yeah, and it gets sent to your senator and they see that 700 people in their district ask them for whatever it is. It's like that. And so I would say you want either the students to write their own letters and email them in, or you want, and you can also have a letter that their names all go on. And so you have all of these students who have signed on to the letter.
Excellent.
But yes, there's no age limit.
Good.
Perfect. Thank you.
Carol, you had a question?
Yes, about Saturday. Do you need art materials that I can
Absolutely.
bring from, from our mural painting? I have some art materials, and maybe I could bring some of my brushes. And yeah,
That would
sure.
be
Those
great.
kids can also help if they want to do some artwork. I'll bring you the acrylic.
That we'll get creative. Sounds good to me.
Uh-huh.
You can't make too much of a mess out there.
And also on August 22, thought you mentioned about the bus. You made reservation for bus. Are we
We're
doing
working
that?
on it. We're working
Oh.
on it. It's $600.
Oh.
Everybody want to cough up some money to get that bus?
Yeah. So how many people are actually going to the?
The bus will
physical-
hold 44 people.
How many
So
people?
if anybody would like to contribute to the cause, see if we can raise some money to get that bus.
Is Rita gonna take their bus?
What's that?
Rita, do they have bus? Are they planning on going on their own bus? Rita,
I'm not aware.
So my understanding is that if enough people with disabilities sign up, they may be able, but again, that's something that has to be covered. So they need to have the driver who takes the bus up there has to be paid, and they need to be reimbursed for gas.
The commission does make accommodations for people that have disabilities. And there's a telephone number that we can give you. If you need help, you need to contact them at least 5 days prior to the hearing so that an accommodation could be made for you. So if you need an accommodation, let me know, and we'll certainly give out that number on the next email blast that we send out so that it can be distributed to the community.
So Joyce, I'm just going to give a really quick update. So after our Saturday meeting, as promised, letters were dropped off at the Redistricting Commission office. Over 360 letters were dropped off to them from Roosevelt Island. Thank you all for the people who did fill out the letters by hand. And what I heard from them is they said, oh, where are you from? And I said, Roosevelt Island. And they said, oh, we're hearing from you guys. So great job, guys. Keep it up. That's what we want to hear. They are hearing from us. And again, you don't have to limit yourself to just reaching out to them one time. You can say, like, let's say the last time you just signed a letter and said, no, I don't like this. But since then, you've heard some of the points that were made and you think they're really good. You can write them again. You can call them. You can do these and testify. And these are all ways to get our message through. So just because you've contacted them once in an email, you are more than welcome to contact them as many times as you like. I highly recommend that each time you do, though, you make different points so that all of our points are heard.
Starlight, you have your hand up.
Yes, if I have the information of all these people, I don't have a problem writing letters. I don't have a problem testifying. So whatever needs to be done, if I'm emailed with the proper information, I will do my part.
Are you on my list?
I believe I am. I'm not sure. So I did put my information in the chat again, just in case you did not have it. But if I can email those people or have their phone numbers and call them and nag them, because I feel like if there are 12,000 people on the island, maybe more, maybe less, I'm not sure. But if there are that many people here and they're hearing from only 300 or less, then it's not going to make a difference. I mean, I'm hoping that it will, but I don't see how it possibly can if people aren't doing their part and getting involved and saying, look, we're here. Just because only 300 of us are speaking or writing letters doesn't mean that there aren't more of us here. It's just some people are either too sick, too elderly, disabled, too young, or whatever, too busy and have other things in their lives going on to get involved. Or maybe they're not doing anything out of fear, or they feel like there may be some type of blowback, or maybe they are just fearful of the fact that maybe nothing is going to change or nothing's going to happen.
Starlight, quick question for you. Did you get my email about this phone call, about this
Yes,
Zoom
I
call?
did.
So you're on my list.
Great, perfect.
Okay, you're on my list. Okay,
Great.
folks, unless it's something new or different or really pressing, let me see what's our Kohler residents going to be heard. We need to reach out to Kohler.
Actually, we have a task force with Community Board 8 that represents the Kohler. It's a Kohler task force, so I'm very familiar with people. I've already let them know. I can see if any of them are interested in writing letters and doing that kind of stuff.
That's a good idea. Barbara?
Has anybody reached out to the hotel?
Graduate?
Yes.
Not to my knowledge. I don't know that we've necessarily had really a discussion even with Jane Swanson.
Yes, that's what I was thinking too.
Yeah.
As well.
I think
Nobody
that's what we're doing.
Has she been sent any of the information at all?
She's not on my list. Hasn't requested to be on the list.
All right, well, she's on mine.
Okay. So that might be a good contact for you.
I will. And then I also know the people at the Graduate.
Excellent.
Okay.
Very good.
We came out of the gate pretty hard and fast, and we're doing a great job. But everybody that's here needs to really reach out to 5, 10, 15, 20 people they know. Make sure they all have heard about this. Make sure that they've all done something, whether it's signing on to an email saying not a good idea, whether it's signing up to testify, whether it's making sure they let every single person that they know about it. And then we're here, if you have questions. I'm still daily learning about some of the things that are involved with this. but this is not this is a bipartisan, this is a Roosevelt Island issue in terms of how we will be able to move our community forward going forward. And we don't think that this is a good idea. I think we've come up with some really good, hard, solid reasons on why. And we just encourage you all to let your friends know and to get them on board and to write letters.